Hey folks, welcome to Kaisers Kastle. Hopefully you guys are all doing good. I see you online right now. Val, how am I feeling? How am I sounding? Yeah, I heard it was very bad. My last show was very bad because the sound quality was, but I was touching on topics. Tonight I brought on Ryan Lewellin from Cold War Cast. That's his site. And he also has, hopefully he can bounce in and tell everybody the type of, okay, today it's good. Yep, awesome. Hopefully he can tell you guys about his project that he has going on, which is his tea and what he sells. So, Ryan, please feel free to share, brother.
Well, thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be back. It's been a while since we had a conversation here on YouTube. But yeah, I do the Cold War Cast. It's a podcast that talks about the history of the Cold War, mainly through the angle of the pop culture of the time. And as you said, I also have a business where I make loose leaf tea called reddragonherbs.net if anyone's interested in checking that out there. I've been pretty busy with that the past couple of months, so the podcast has kind of been on a hiatus, but now that we're going into the new year, we'll probably start churning out more episodes with the podcast.
Well, of course, that's epic, Ryan. I mean, your podcast, Cold War Cast, all of you guys should feel free to listen to it. He honestly gets a lot of things. He's a younger Marine, just like I am. Semper Fi, brother.
Semper Fi.
You know how that stuff goes. We got to give love to our brothers.
Absolutely.
The thing that gets me is his tea is epic. You guys can go there, find it. He is non-political. He just looks at things as they are and as they were. But he brings a different perspective. And the reason why I found him so valuable, it was accidental how we met. I mean, we met on WPRPN, World Pirate Radio Podcast Network. And I was like, you totally get what was happening during that time. If you want to fill people in on that, feel free, because I'm going to mute for a few seconds.
Yeah, that was probably about a year ago, if I remember right, because, yeah, it was last January. But I did an episode of Pirate Radio with JV Ryder, and we talked about a lot of different Cold War topics. We talked about Bobby Fischer and the Summit Series hockey, and I think we talked a little bit about 1984 and really just a whole bunch of topics. And then he did a special episode for, I guess, his Patreon subscribers or something like that. And he brought Kaiser on the show, and I had never met Kaiser or whatever, and at that point, and it actually turned into a pretty good discussion. We went on for I think about an hour and a half, just all kinds of topics, and then Kaiser and I, we've done a couple of shows together. I know we did, I think, a really good one when everything was going down with Korea over the summer, and like I said, I've taken a little bit of time off from, making things or doing interviews and, shows and stuff like that. But yeah, here we are, and I'm looking forward to talking tonight. I guess Kaiser's probably out for a little bit longer, but yeah, last time we talked about Korea. We gave some of our predictions on what we thought was going to happen with the Korean Peninsula and the summit that they had between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump and Moon there in South Korea. And so far, I think things are rolling pretty slowly over there. Nothing too monumental is happening besides the fact that there's now they're working on a rail line between North and South Korea. I think it's a Russian firm that's doing that. That's pretty significant. My 3-year-old is talking through the door.
That's all good. That's all good. Like you said, it's nothing significant. You can mute if you want. The important part is that it is significant. Look, East Germany in West Germany, if you go to Berlin, you'll find that certain trains going into East Germany are smaller, and the rail lines are actually not the same diameter, or not diameter, but length. So they still
the
use the
gauge or
same
whatever.
trains. Yeah, the gauge, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing is, Russia to China, they don't have the same gauge. They have to actually shift the cars to the wheels. A lot of people don't realize that train cars are not connected to the wheels, but by the thing that holds it to it, which is gravity. Those wheels are on their lines, and they will shift them going in and out. That's a fact.
Huh.
It's been that
You
way
know,
for years, huh?
that's funny. There was actually a train derailment just about a mile away from my house, and a couple weeks ago, I took my son, my 3-year-old, that was just making some noise under the door to go check out the train wreck. And I thought it was weird because, yeah, all the wheels, they were separated. And it was like a clean separation like that. And they were like almost like in a pile. I thought that was weird. So, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Well, it's international. That's how it's done. The wheels are made, and they hold on to the tracks until there's a derailment. And see, there's a lot of stuff people don't understand about things. Two things I'm a fan of. Well, there's about 3 things actually. Super big rail guns and guns that are put for defense, Maginot Line type stuff, or the old European line stuff, or the rail guns in Europe. The other thing that I'm a fan of is lighthouses. Don't ask me why. I just love them. Everywhere I go, there's a lighthouse I take pictures with and stuff. It's just my thing. And under the rail thing, I'll also tell you, a lot of people don't realize we had a rail line going from Tehran all the way into Russia. Lend-Lease was not just about giving stuff to the British. We also gave airplanes, tanks, and a bunch of other stuff to the Russians, the Soviets, during the war, the Second World War. And the third and final thing that I just, I can't get enough of is just, talking about life and how it is during those times. And Jermaine Arminius is on, so is Val. Val asked a question. Ryan and Kaiser, what do you think about the Russians' new weapons? Are those weapons real, or is Putin bluffing? He don't want to show them, only talking. Yeah, no, he's not bluffing. They have been, remember, we had 8 years under Obabala where he did not update our nukes. We actually are in a foot back position. He also didn't update our military. He wanted to use it for socialist, communist, Maoist programs.
Yeah.
That's a fact. That's answering you, Val. Jermaine, hi, bro. Thank you for your job. I will listen, go on. And brother, Jermaine is from Germany. We've known each other for quite a while. He's been on my podcast before. He is an awesome dude. Anyways, it is what it is. He knows he's a hell fellow, well met, and a good man. But going away from that, the thing that I will say is me and you did talk about stuff with Korea, and we both had nothing but positive feelings about it. And guess what? People will try to dismiss it, especially in the lamestream media. They will try to dismiss how important that rail line is. And they've also been pulling up the minefields. Brother, that is a UXO, EOD, monumental task on both sides. And the border hasn't been being opened.
Yeah, that's no small gesture. And, they always say money talks. And, with the rail line, that's a big investment. So, that's something they wouldn't just do, just kind of willy-nilly like that, too.
Oh yeah, Moon and Il, Kim Jong Un.
Yeah.
They are. You remember the emotional stuff that we talked about back then? That was. I wish I wouldn't have pulled those pictures off my thing, because when you saw the two things struck me from that, and I'll ask you your opinion of it. I think we talked about it during that time, but when Kim Jong Moon invited Kim Jong Un over,
Yeah.
it's not Kim Jong Moon. I'm sorry, I can't remember Moon's first name
Yeah,
and whatnot.
it's kind of hard to. Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
just call him Moon,
yeah.
President Moon.
When President Moon and he invited Kim Jong Un over, there was this look of like happiness, like brotherhood. Like you've met probably, I know I've met my former combatants that were on the other side. Luckily, I've done that several times in my life, and
Yeah.
it's actually beautiful when it happens. And there was this look of like, yeah, I'll come over, and then nobody expected Un to say to Moon, come on over to my side. You know, that little brick dividing line.
Yeah, that
And
was a really cool gesture. Yeah.
yeah, and it didn't have to happen that way. And then the celebration, the party, there were real talks happening. Uh, no matter what anybody wants to say, that was a powerful day. And
Yeah.
I know I was crying because I'd been to Korea for a Valiant Blitz, a bear hunt, and yeah, it's crazy. And yet I'm on the opposite side. Yet I feel the power of that, and also a team spirit. And
Yeah.
that is, it's where you realize that everything you did meant something. It just took 2 generations to happen. And or 3 generations actually, grandpa, daddy, and him.
Right. Yeah. Because
And
yeah, it'd be 1949.
yeah. So anyways, go on and tell me your impressions, brother. I really want to hear them.
Um, well, kind of like what you said, even though I don't really have any skin in the game, as long as I've been alive, North Korea has been North Korea, and I had never been there. So, it's just kind of always been an oddity to me, and it didn't seem like there'd ever really be any hope of it being anything other than that. But seeing all that happen, yeah, it was pretty powerful, and I mean, it really kind of got me thinking about the prospects really for that. And I remember we talked about maybe some of the downsides that could have happened. Nothing really geopolitically. Geopolitically, it's going to be a great thing. But within Koreans, and that's important that I'm saying Korean and not North Korean, South Korean society. There could have been some things like I think we talked about the North Koreans basically not being able to adapt to the South Korean economy and the lifestyle. And one thing that I think would be kind of interesting is if there's a reunification, is I don't know if I talked about it on the show, but I would predict that in South Korea, there's going to be the rise of something along the lines of the alt-right, I guess, here in the United States, where there's going to be the influence from the more folkish and traditional and very anti-materialistic North on Southern society, and there's a lot of strains. They had the highest suicide rates, and worked the longest hours and stuff in the South. And I also think on the South that there would be almost kind of like a back to the land movement, kind of like what we saw in the 70s, the early 70s with the oil embargo and so forth, where people are going to leave the rat race in the South and move to the North, where there's going to be, cheap real estate basically, and, become cabbage farmers. So it's going to be interesting to see, if everything goes down the way that we think it will, how it's going to affect society there in that part of the world.
I
But
completely agree. Here's the thing a lot of people don't want to talk about. is it was a forced marriage between East and West Germany. Nobody can doubt this. Now you look at the East Germans area. That's the high-priced real estate. It's the trendy place people want to go. And Jermaine's posting some stuff. I'll talk about it here in a few, brother. I get where you're coming from, but let me finish, and I will explain, and I guarantee you'll understand this, brother. He's actually typing from Germany, so he knows what's up. Okay. So here's the thing. Those prices went up out of style, and the poor people that were living in East Germany after the wall fell, they were pretty much, screwed in a lot of ways, because democracy put their foot in their head, but it was forced. Nobody can deny this. Now, second thing about that is now everybody's starting to catch up, but how many years did that take? If it would have been a more natural blend, if Milke and Honecker weren't such cunts, and I'm saying that in a real way, if they would have let it come naturally, taken down the wall, and slowly blended their governments together, it would have been more natural. And without without ramifications. It should have been, and I think that's what Moon and Un are doing. They don't want it to be. I don't think this is something that Jermaine said, and I understand where he's come from. There's a reason I understand where he's come from. I think it's a big game to fool us in that point. Made game by global players who do not care about nations or serve Mel. They play with us and can be dangerous. And he's very correct on that, but it's not the same way, because I don't think Un has learned one thing from Libya, from Saddam in Iraq, also from when I said Libya, I'm talking about the dictator, okay?
Yeah.
And all the way back to Panama, Mr. Pineapple Head with Operation
Noriega.
Noriega, right? And he's seen that, and he's like, "This is not going to happen to us." And then watch, a few years after we invaded Iraq and killed Saddam, what was the next thing we did? The guy who was working with us in Libya, Gaddafi, we anally raped him, or at least allowed it to happen. Right. With a thing that now is known forever for 13 hours, where we destroyed a nation state. Now they have the slave blocks open. You can buy a person in Benghazi. You can buy them all over Libya.
That's what I hear. Yeah.
I mean, so he sees what's happening, and he's not going to allow it. And so when these people act like the Americans' hands are clean, the Gulf War had some, or not just the Gulf War, but the Cold War had real ramifications because we had dirty players. And the one thing I think about Trump is he's a clean player, and I definitely know this about his Secretary of State right now. He's a clean player. He is trying to get something done that will echo. Of course, Obabala got the Peace Prize, and yet all he did was, I'm pretty good at killing people with drones. He never killed nobody. He didn't kill nobody with SEAL Team 6. He killed the entire SEAL Team 6 with Extortion 17 so that they would shut their mouths. That's a fact.
Yeah, that was kind of a fishy ordeal that they all died afterwards, and no bodies materialized for Osama. I don't know. Yeah, it was kind of a weird deal. I don't know all the details, but there's something that didn't seem right with all that.
Yeah, burial at sea in the Islamic way. Well, Islamics don't do that, so whatever. I mean, he is what he is. It's something that a buddy of mine, when I was doing the survival thing, I'm not going to give his name up, but in pre-2000 Y2K, there was this thing that people would have, survival shows and this, that, and the other, like a gun show, right?
Right, yeah.
And we all got together and we were talking about stuff, just people in the know. And I was a loudmouth. This is under Clinton. And a buddy of mine goes, "Hey man, you're talking pretty serious shit about Clinton. What are you gonna do? Something? Are you stupid? Did you get stupid all of a sudden?" I'm like, "No, man." I said, this, that, and he goes, "Okay, realize Clinton's an asshole. So shut your mouth and quit acting like that, or people are gonna think you're gonna do something." And that's what kept me sane through Babila. And it's gonna shift again. I mean, I know what Babila did, man. The U.S. human trafficked Ugandans, to help with security in Iraq and Afghanistan. Nobody can doubt this.
Right.
And it's sick and sadistic. But yet, this is a black man from Africa, he says, or his wife said at least. He denied it. And, of course, his birth certificate. And a woman who was able to verify his birth certificate was the only person who died in a fake plane crash. If you ever look at that video, you'll enjoy that. And somehow they could all stand up, but she drowned. Figure that one out. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Off Hawaii, by the way. So, I'm not getting into the spiritard stuff right now, but what I am saying is there was a lot of fishy shit that went on. But he got the Nobel Peace Prize. He's the man. So, whatever. People will say what they want. Now, Jermaine brought up in that point, the contrast between West and East Germany was a big money game, and he's exactly correct. True and still, and the East Germans' rights in land. This is why East Germans piss off Merkel. Hope Trump to make it okay, is what he means. And salutations to kick away the deep state. Yes, you're right, which is B&D now. It's no longer Stasi, except now Stasi, wait till you hear this, Ryan. I don't know if you know this or not, and if you do, fill me in. Do you know Google, besides having on YouTube the person who's in charge of banning people in Germany and Europa proper, is a former Stasi female agent cunt? They're also taking over the Stasi building. We're talking the one Milke had.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Seems like a little too flagrant, really, to take over that building and run their operations out of there, though.
Yeah. And he said maybe to read and check and find out who dominates the money, folks. And he's exactly right. It's not just the East, and it's not just the West. Well, we all know who the globalists are, and that's what this whole thing's about. But anyways, I don't want to get off on that tangent. Brother Jermaine, I get what you're saying. So does Ryan, I guarantee you. But it's always been a money game, because remember, who funded both Stalin and Lenin getting back into Russia to start the white and red revolution? You know this, right, Ryan.
Yeah, it wasn't the peasants in the street of Russia. Certainly wasn't them.
That's right. It was Wall Street.
Yeah. And
that's the whole thing nobody wants to talk about. And so earlier I did a show. This is why I did this long, folks, because Ryan and a lot of people said it cut out. I was doing a show that started out with the Arsenal of Democracy, Americans' weapons available for export. And in the lower part it says what they cost, what they do, What Makes Them and Who Has Them by Tom Germasi. Okay? I probably butchered his last name. I'm sorry for that if he's still living. It came out in 1978. And I remember going into the military in the 80s, getting my first hardcover book of it, and other books too, because, you know, I was still at that time a Marxist, actually. I needed to know what was up, you know, what's going on. And then also researching what the Russians were doing. Look, we make high tech like nobody else. Here's what really irritated me under Clinton was how much he sold to the Chinese and gave to the Mexicans, i.e. our corporations, our manufacturing bases. And I know that it took the Russians and the Americans with a manufacturing base 4 years during the Second World War to catch up to the Germans and the Japanese. That's a fact. Nobody can deny. And during that 4 years, we still had a manufacturing base, but that's why you had Singer sewing machines making M1 and M1 carbines for the war effort in Thompson machine guns. You can find them marked. You had General Motors, Fisher Guide, making M1 Garands. Everybody dived into the war effort. And that was what was supposed to happen during the Cold War. If something happened, all of our manufacturing that was left, because it was always on the preposition that we would lose major cities and major manufacturing bases in a nuclear war. That's just what they believed and what is fact and what is still fact today. And with fourth gen warfare, they don't even need nukes to EMP us. They can just shut our grids down because our grids still have 1970s era basic stuff, you know, to where they can hack into them. And that's something nobody wants to talk about. And this is why I think if you didn't hear it, you'll hear that everything I'm saying now is pretty much what I said then. And for some reason, YouTube decided to fuzz me out. How did it sound? You said you listened to it, Ryan. Please expound on how it sounded.
Yeah.
And I'm going to step away for a minute or two.
Yeah, I heard the opening song, and then it was just static for, I think I figured out it was like the first 12 minutes. I could faintly hear your voice in the static, but couldn't understand what you were saying just because the static drowned it out and it was so soft. But then, and I'm not even sure what happened. It didn't sound like you did anything different. At about the 12-minute mark, you just kind of picked up where you're at, and from then on out, yeah, everything was fine. So, yeah, I sent you a message and trying to figure out, I guess, what you were talking about, because I missed the first part, and so couldn't really put it all together. But yeah, then you asked if I wanted to come on later, and yeah, it worked out. So here we are. So he's gone for a couple of minutes. He mentioned the EMP, the fact that somebody could hit us with an EMP. And one thing that I think is kind of interesting about that, maybe a little reassuring, is the idea that the Chinese need us economically. Some people might debate that, but at this point, they certainly do. That if we weren't there to basically buy their shit, then then they've got nothing. So that's a little comforting that one of the countries that is a potential adversary and someone who could potentially do something like that to us, that maybe they would think twice about doing that. And also too, if you look at the Russians and the Chinese over the past 10, 15 years or so, seems like they've been kind of coming together, forming a bit of a block. I know a while ago they tried to do the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and that still exists, but that lost a little bit of
And the
steam.
BRICS.
Like, oh yeah, the BRICS, yeah, and and that's lost some steam too. I think, especially with Brazil kind of going a different path these days. But also, you think about it, like, would Russia really want to do that to us if the Chinese need us? The Chinese, they would know that, their goose would be cooked if the Russians did that to us. So, there could be, I guess, some restraint on that. But I don't know. That almost makes it a little more scary because that leads to non-state actors as, potentially being able to do that, I guess. But, their resources would be a little bit more limited.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but here's the thing I do know. And now, I don't take anything away from Ryan. Ryan is a Marine warrior. He served, he can tell you if he feels comfortable how to tell you how he served. And I have served in different manners. I've also been a peacekeeper, and that's really what I think. And, well, everybody knows pretty much what I do now. It's a fact. I mean, I'm not going to hide from it. People will call it a lot of stuff, but I'm just a consultant. That's all I am. I'm nobody. But what I do know is that under Obabala, my identity was not stolen one time, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. It was stolen from the Ohio Army National Guard, stolen from DOD. It was stolen from DHS, who was another agency I worked for. And it was also stolen from SAIC. And I got letters from each of them saying, well, you get this free thing like LifeLock. You hear that advertisement all the time. But they would give me these knockoff LifeLock things. Well, I don't trust them because I don't trust the U.S. government because they allowed me to... Look, the Chinese had unfettered access to every veteran or every government employee's information, including family. You got to think about your clearances, guys. When you signed it up, you gave your wife's name, her family, and so they have a complete link on who might have a gun in America. So they have the complete breakdown. Because here's one thing, Ryan, if you want, you can talk about this, but I'll guarantee you, you had this conversation in basic or boot camp. Every time I was around Joe's, we would always joke around and say, hey, so who served in your family? Uncle, brother, mother, sister, cousin. Guess what? Grandfather, grandmother, waves, wax, whatever it was. There was always people that, they weren't the first. And we do not have a caste system in the U.S., but we actually do. And that caste system is the United States military. And I don't know, you give me your opinion on it, but I believe that if they say 40 million were exposed, which is now their final number, of course, that's their final number. It's always got to be a low under 100 million. Everybody's exposed. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, because if you think of what year did that happen, that was like maybe 2009?
It went from 2009 all the way up to 2015. The year before that piece of shit got removed from office.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, if you think about, how many people had served in that time, that would still be alive, all the Vietnam era vets, and just kind of, I mean, we went through periods of kind of a low military numbers, I guess, of military service at that point. But it's a shitload of people. And, like we had the draft at that point there would be people that, were drafted and, still be alive. So it's a good chunk of our population. really that have access through. And like you said, I didn't really quite
Exactly.
think about it. Family members. That might even be one of the best ways to get tabs on the entire population, if you think about it, because that would be like one of the largest subgroups of the population. Yep.
Exactly. And the reason why is they would know that these people are familiar with guns. Look, General
Hmm.
Yamamoto during the Second World War, his biggest fear was if the Japanese ever invaded America, there would be an American with a rifle behind every blade of grass. Well, they don't have to worry about that on the Pacific coast now because they have totally mollified from Oregon, California, not so much Washington State. I mean, they'll have to go inland and in the mountains, they'll fight. But you think about, here's something that's funny. The original Wolverines, you look at the beginning of it and see what they did. Look at Mexico right now. Look at all the
Yeah.
people that have come up from Venezuela. Look at all these Marxists that are coming up. And our politicians are completely. Jermaine has said some stuff. I really don't want to get into a lot of that, but brother, I know what you're saying, and you can look it up on your end, Ryan, if you want to get into it. I'm not trying to hijack the conversation, and I know he's not either, but he's pointing out facts.
Yeah.
America
Yeah.
was alone, and America right now is alone. Europe is lost. I mean, there are Europeans like Jermaine and other Europeans I know that will stand and fight. People have this misnomer that Europeans can't own guns. You're wrong. They can. They just are licensed. They belong to gun clubs. The Europeans can be mobilized, but the problem is they've been so cucked after the Second World War. And Germany especially. But the East Germans were never cucked. Those East Germans stand, and so did the ones that were in the police, the special forces, the Schwimmers.
Hmm.
All these people, SEK, they know what's going on. And a Marxist communist, like I'm just briefly mentioning it, and I gave you my one thing for you to look at, and so I'm sure you know who Angela Merkel is and Milke and Honecker,
Yeah.
because I think I did the most concise breakdown of those people. There's a reason for that, but I'm not going to get into it. But what we see now, yeah, Jermaine said the German military are now a wolf without teeth. Also, an
Yeah.
agenda by the money group, yes. No more a German force, just a proper troop, a shame, and the general throw out because of speech clear, which what he means is political correct speech. So, anyways, give me your thoughts on that, brother.
Well, I guess I'm not sure if there's a like a specific incident that he's talking about. I don't know if there's something that kind of hit the German tabloids, where a general's kind of getting put over the raked over the coals over saying something. But one thing I think is interesting is there are real tangible links between us and Europe. That no matter what politics happen,
Yep.
we're going to be connected. We don't necessarily need a treaty to look at, the Dutch, the Germans, the English, the French, or whatever, and say, hey, these are like, I'm not even necessarily speaking completely racially, but these are our people. We are on the same side of these guys. We believe a lot of the same things generally. So I don't really get into some of the alarmist talk that I think a lot of people have that, Donald Trump is separating us from Europe or whatever, because we are always going to have those ties. But at the geopolitical level, we are separating
Exactly.
from those guys. And, even though, I absolutely love Europe and, I view these people as, my distant kin or whatever. But I think it is a good idea that we are kind of drifting away a little bit from them because, yeah, it's time for Europe to start cleaning house in Europe.
It is. It is. That's the thing that drives most Germans I know nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Since 2015, there was a time, and every one of them know. Oh wow, Jermaine just said, and the swimmers are collapsing by missing money. The swimmers are their SEAL team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You got to remember when Germany collapsed, the East and West actually tried to join their militaries, and they vetted people. They actually did the right thing under Cole and other people that were there during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And they had an outstanding force. I remember before I went in the Marine Corps, brother, I remember knowing the East Germans would be our most virulent foes because they were totally indoctrinated. And the West had been cucked. We wrote their Constitution, and here's something a lot of people don't know, is they are a vassal state, even until now. There was never a real peace treaty signed where their Constitution linked them only to the German people. They were linked to us and democracy. And in a lot of ways, if you read some of the esoteric writings of different people, democracy is a failed god. Because eventually, just like Benjamin Franklin said to that woman, we gave you a democratic republic if you can keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the system, it just doesn't seem sustainable over a long period of time. Just for all the reasons, people vote money for themselves, and it kind of gets to a point where you can pit the haves versus the have-nots, and all that. So yeah, it doesn't seem like a sustainable system over the long term. But kind of get back to the point of East Germany being a little less, I guess, indoctrinated to neoliberalism. I mean, hell, look at Poland today and Hungary. These are kind of the darling countries of the right now. And, part of that is because, they had some, I guess, what we would consider, left-leaning or liberal indoctrination or whatever through the Soviets. But it definitely wasn't to the same extent that people had in the West. And I guess the Czech Republic and, and Slovakia, of course, is kind of the same way too, although they were a little bit more Western leaning. But yeah, Poland, they're really standing against the European Union right now.
Yeah, it was an inoculation. Look, anybody who's actually lived, this has come from, here's a different, I can't get into a lot of things, but what I can say is I actually saw Eastern Germany. Jermaine knows more than most, but the truth is, I can tell you I saw what Western Germany was as a Marxist. And then you see the West, okay? That's an inoculation. That is a vaccine against what can come. And that's why you're seeing it in Hungary. You can see it in all those Poland. You can see it in Romania. You can see it in all these nation states. And even Austria has jumped on board. Now you're seeing it with a state that I never thought would do it. Two states, actually. Greece and Italy. They're like, this is fucking stupid. We're not going to do this. Yeah. We're not going to destroy our countries and our culture. And yet us in America are 50-50 divided, saying, no, invite everybody in. And then the worst part is Germany. Because Angela Merkel, her Marxist, and I actually like Angela on a personal level, and I've gotten a lot of heat from Germans who are my brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. And I got a lot of heat when I said in 2015, oh no, she's not going to go back to her roots. She went right back to her fucking roots. And that's why I made those videos, bruh. Germany is fucked on this part. And, you know, it's just my thought process on it. But I honestly thought she was inoculated, but I guess not. You know, I guess everybody can be a cuck sometime.
Well, it almost kind of makes me wonder too. You know, like let's take Obama for instance. A lot of people thought that he was going to be different, and you know, make all these great changes. You know, if you have that political perspective, that they would be great. And I mean, I guess people kind of thought that about Donald Trump too. That he would do all these things and rattle all these heads or whatever.
Yep. But
is the system that entrenched that there's really not that much you could do differently? I don't know. It just kind of makes me wonder, about some what would happen if, you sat down and had a few drinks with Barack Obama and he just kind of like opened up to you, or Donald Trump, like what would they actually tell you?
Well,
yeah, I would have liked to do this, like to do that, but you can't because blah, 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 blah. And, also, I guess kind of looking at some of my political and social views and how they've changed over time, you first hit a point where you realize that, things aren't right in the world and,
right.
These certain things are wrong and they should be right. But then you kind of get to a point where, these things are wrong, but that if they were corrected, what the consequences of correcting these things are. And, it's like, yeah, there's a kind of a price to pay for a lot of these things. And I guess to kind of tie it in with talking about democracy being a potentially flawed system. I don't know. Sometimes do we need these kind of people to make these tough decisions? Like let's say you just get a common guy off the street and tell him about the petrodollar system.
Right.
And, like, oh, well, that's unfair. We should change that. Well, what happens, a month later after we change that?
Right. No, you're exactly right. The most phenomenal thing, if you think about this, brother, just feed your mind on this. Jermaine said, I agree, James, but the UN give a damn shit of it. And he's exactly correct. When I was in Afghanistan, I got back, and everybody knows I got back about 2 months ago. And, I had a lung infection, all this stuff. It is what it is. I bought the ticket, took the ride. That's what a man does. And I made a difference, or I didn't. Whatever. It's all bullshit. But what I will tell you is I saw 2 UN flights leave out of Kandahar Airport with Kandaharians, and they were German flagged planes going to Germany. You can't make this shit up. And then the Russians, actually they weren't the Russians, they were the Ukrainians. Here's why Ukraine was such a big thing besides the oil thing. We had 2 flights of the massive planes leaving every day out of Kandahar. What were they carrying? What kind of tonnage were they carrying of opium?
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, what else were they carrying? The stuff that everybody likes to talk about because batteries are made out of it. Lithium, but also what else does lithium make? It makes a drug, right?
Does it?
Yeah, lithium.
I guess I didn't know.
Yeah. It's the same thing. It's the same power source. It's also the same drug. It's the same mineral. It makes both of them. And you look at the opium addictions that we have in America and in the West. It's not just America.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a purpose to force. And I'm not trying to bring you into my banquet, Ryan, because you honestly don't have to believe anything. You know, don't believe what I say or post. Just research what I post and come to your own decision. And I mean that with everybody who ever comes here. It sounds like you're on, but I didn't hear a response, brother.
Oh I'm sorry. I was here. Sorry, my kids are screaming in the other room. I was just kind of hoping they would tone it down, I guess. But
no, no worries, man. Your kids can scream all day long. That means you're having babies. I love that. I mean, I have a son, man. This is a family thing. I try to make it. Notice I'm not dropping F-bombs every minute. I love that we are still having families in all of our countries. And here's the funny thing Jermaine just said, and if you knew who Jermaine was, and you will one day, brother.
Okay.
He said, "Yep, James, big underground missions to kill us everywhere. But we will have fun, Scal."
Definitely interesting times.
Exactly. So give me your opinion on the lithium and the opium.
Well, I guess, I didn't know that lithium was connected to opium, but I know that, the opium, I guess there's a couple of reasons why Afghanistan would actually have value for us to. How long have we been there? Since 2002? Is that what it was? 2002, 2003. Either way, it's still been a long time.
It was 2011, October 26th, when I stepped foot on Afghanistan the first time.
Okay, no, I'm just saying, the American/Western presence, was it 2002, 2003 or whatever? But there's got to be something that makes Afghanistan valuable. Like we said at the beginning of the show, money talks. So, I've kind of heard the stories of, the troops out there having to kind of protect these poppy fields and, kind of going out their way to not harm this, where you think if we were all about law and order, we would. But I don't know. And then Jermaine actually brought up the Boxer Rebellion in China. And there's definitely parallels between the opioid crisis in America and, the opium wars in China, or, that brought about the Boxer Rebellion. So that's kind of an interesting synchronicity there that was brought up. But I guess I don't really have any opinion, I guess, on opium in Afghanistan, and other than and that's what makes, I guess, understanding that's kind of what makes Afghanistan valuable.
Yeah, opium
one of the things
is for the pharma, and this is why the market must run. That's from what Jermaine said. But he also knows that lithium, remember, that's the drug that you put people to sleep with.
Okay.
And think about how that would go if it was put into the waters. In our own water things. Why are these planes leaving and such? And not just that, the Afghans, a third world, to be sure, country, why are they being flown? Because now they can't reliably be brought to Europa. Why are they being flown to it now? Trust me, I mean, I couldn't believe when I was seeing what I was seeing. Busloads. And they may not all be Canadians. They could be coming from anywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, I know for a fact, I'm not going to say I'm sure, I know for a fact ISIS members were being thrown. That's why you see grenade attacks being prevalent in Europa, in Sweden in particular.
Yeah, and that's something like if I wanted to get a grenade, I don't know where I would get one. So, obviously these guys have some kind of, and I guess we're more tolerant with those kind of things in the United States of America. But yeah, it definitely points to some interesting connections, I guess, with these people that are doing that.
The only way I know how to do it is from over there. But I will
Hmm.
tell you this. You can look up, let me think of his name. So I'll put this out loud and proud. And this is one of the things that I keep in my hip pocket. Because I know that, I'm being looked at and they really want to burn my playhouse down. But I'll burn their playhouse down. Mohammed Abdi. There was a mall here in Columbus, Ohio. And
Hmm.
this guy, who was a Somalian, he had crates, and it was provided to him by the FBI, by the way. Uh, he had crates of hand grenades, and he wanted to throw them in a mall that we have here. And
Hmm.
he's the mall bomber. You can look this up. Muhammad Abdi, Somalian, Columbus, Ohio. And it was a mall that I'm not going to give everything away, how much I know. But what I will tell you is I do know a lot of things, and that's what makes them want to visit me and don't understand what happened. Yeah, what happened is I've lied for you fuckers. And the lies stop. I get to choose. You don't. And I will burn their fucking playhouse down. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up. Just kind of like on that note, I'm not that far from Minneapolis, I guess, I'm 4 hours away, but the Mall of America there. And I know that's kind of one thing that they've always thrown out there as a potential terrorist attack there. And, they're always catching mostly people from the Somalian community up there, going back and joining ISIS or, whatever group or Al Qaeda or whatnot. So yeah, that's kind of scary. I guess there's kind of the death of the American shopping mall, which has made it a little less scary. But yeah, that's just I don't know, kind of a weird deal. That they've talked about quite a bit. I've seen a
You're
lot of.
you're exactly correct. But the problem is, you know why that became something? Is because of
Was it
what
because of
happened.
this?
And yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and that's the whole thing. And yet I was a part of lies, and the lies weren't from me. Is because, oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. You gotta sign this. Here's the thing they don't have on me. Anytime you gotta sign this non-disclosure agreement, I'll be like, all right, I'll be right back. I gotta go take a piss, and then I
Yeah.
drive away. I've never signed their non-disclosure agreements, so you can't get me for that, fuckers. This is the thing that gets me. I'm fed up with the lies. These fuckers have. I love my life, but they don't get to run me, and I will never be run by any man or woman. You know, that's the
Yeah.
thing. And if men realize they can do this and stand and realize I don't care. I don't care what you want. I don't care if it's my government that wants this. I don't care if you think it's best. Look, I know for a fact because of brothers and me and Jaffe had it out one time, and it was good. I love Jaffe. I'll
Hmm.
never talk shit about him ever. But he was like, when I told him Osama didn't die when Obama said he did. He died during Bush's term. And that's
Oh,
fact.
okay.
I know that from several people that were there on our team that I trust because I met them in 2005 in Iraq. And they were on that team. And they said, yeah, man, he died in a Moab attack in Tora Bora. And
Hmm.
then Bush silenced that. Silenced it. because he didn't want to make Osama a martyr. Obama
Right,
didn't
yeah.
care about making him a martyr. He just wanted those creds for his next re-election. And then the
Yeah.
next thing that gets me, oh, this really gets me. There were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And yet you have over, I think it was 300,000 tons of yellow cake shipped from Iraq to Canada for destruction. It made the news, the normal news, but it made it much later after the election. And
Yeah, I remember you and I talking about that.
yeah, I'm
And,
sure you
I
looked
know
it up.
that was something I was skeptical of. That I assumed that they didn't, or nothing really to speak of. But yeah, it makes sense.
Well, it's truth. I mean, anyway, so, bruh, I'm not trying to keep you on and give you. I don't want you to have to take a bite of my banquet because you have a nice young family. But I definitely thought your perspective on Korea and the Cold War, that's the focus of this, is the source. Just other people asking questions. Original Larry, love to have you over here. Kaiser, glad to hear, buddy. Just stop by to say hello. Yeah, no, you guys are all welcome. Every one of you guys. I just also, with that, the thing when we were talking earlier, I could not believe the beginning of my program got nixed. And I have no idea why.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Kind of like normally, something like that would just be like silent,
Right.
but it was the static. So yeah, it was kind of weird. But yeah, I figured I'd check in with you and make sure everything was okay, I guess. So
Yep, and it is. So definitely, I know you got things to do. Now, here's the thing. This is the pre-New Year's. I know you are, Original Larry. Original Larry was like, I'm a friend of Michael Deacon. Yeah, he knows me too, bro. So we're good. Here's the thing, and Michael Deacon also knows a lot more than a lot of people, but he'll never say because he's a good man. What I'll say is, in my opinion, and I am the foremost expert on my opinion. Nobody's more expert in it than I am. But I've Forrest Gumped myself through this shit. And this is the thing that I want to tell all of you guys. Stand up, say your truth. You can be wrong. It doesn't matter if you're wrong. It's your opinion. You can change your opinion. But stand for something or you're going to fall for everything. Because, honestly, that's where we're at in this nation right now. Because you're seeing upside down world. Ryan, here's the one question I'll ask you. Did you ever think from Cold War to now, did you ever think that everything would be true except the truth no longer, it's inverted almost. It's no longer true anymore.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting how many different angles there are to different things and ways to spin things. So I mean, sometimes you start to even question yourself when you start delving into these things, and what you know. And I don't know. I think that kind of makes people, and we're probably all guilty of it at some point, of walling off your idea of truth. When you hear something that goes against what you believe, whether or not it's the mainstream opinion or whatnot, that I don't know, you might have your guard up, but that could be by design as well too.
It's the echo chamber.
Yeah, exactly.
But the only way to beat out the echo chamber, tell me if I'm wrong, is to listen to all points.
Yeah.
and come to
Yeah.
your own conclusion, and don't say I'm the foremost expert on this, that, and the other, because
Yeah.
I'm a shmee.
Yeah.
I'm considered a shmee on a lot of things, subject matter expert. But really, the only I hate experts
Hmm.
because here's what I'm an expert in: my own opinion, and my own opinion can be changed, and
Yeah. And
that's
it
what I
should be.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think we miss now.
Yeah, and I guess one thing I'll kind of leave with here, I got to get going, is one of my favorite quotes from anything really is just kind of a simple quote from 1984 that I don't think, or the book 1984, that I don't think was supposed to really be one of the big hard hitting quotes, but sanity is not statistical. And what you get from that is that just because everybody believes something or the majority of people believe something doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to be the right idea. That sometimes you do have to listen to these dissenting voices or
Exactly.
minority opinions and take them seriously.
I agree completely on that. That's probably the best way to leave.
Hmm.
Honestly, Ryan, I hope we do another show again. I know we
Oh
will,
yeah, we
probably.
will. We will.
Um, please uh, pitch all of your stuff that you do right now because it's important. I want people to look at everything that you're doing, and
Um,
that way they can see who Ryan Lewellin is, who is a good man.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep. You can find me at Cold War Cast. You can either go to coldwarcast.com or subscribe on iTunes. And I'll probably start, like I said, it took a couple month hiatus. Yeah, just due to life and, business getting kind of hectic due to the season. But yeah, follow me there, or you can just look me up on Facebook. See Ryan Llewellyn, how it's spelled right there, or Twitter. Minds.com. I've got a business where I make loose leaf tea, and you can find that again at reddragonherbs.net. And so yeah, I'm out there. So yeah, just feel free to get in touch. And I've got in touch with some people actually, from doing the shows with you, and always like hearing from people and hearing other people's ideas. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Hold on for a minute. I'm going to mute everybody and I'm going to send it out and I'll talk to you afterwards. And
All right.
I will put the final song. I'll probably have to speak through it because I got to daggone find it. Daggone it. Shoot. All right. So here I'm going to have to. I got mad boomer skills, even being a Gen Xer, right? So
Yeah.
here, you're gonna hear some typing. It's me.
Yeah, I'm one of the oldest millennials, so I'm supposed to be good at this kind of thing, but I'm not. So
Isn't it nice?
yeah, so yeah, I
So
was born in '81, so I'm kind of right between there, Generation X and the millennials.
there you go. Isn't it great? So this is inside enemy headquarters, and I'm sending everybody out with it.